Yo, what's good, Epic 7 fam? Pat here, back with another video, and in this one, we'll be talking about which 5-star you should probably take for your Iseria Foundation Day gift. It is the 4th year anniversary of Epic 7, and if you go into your in-game events, you'll notice there is an Iseria Foundation check-in event. You'll be receiving a free 5-star, assuming you log in 15 days during this event. The Iseria Foundation Day gift will then be deposited into your mailbox after you claim it, in which case you can redeem it for a 5-star of your choosing, although there are some caveats. You cannot choose Arya, you cannot choose Teiyu, you cannot choose Yulha, Sharoon, Zeno, Yuna, or any limited 5-star character or any 5-star collaboration character. So no, you cannot choose Rimuru Tempest or Edward Elric or things of that nature. There are a lot of 5-stars at this point in Epic 7's lifespan. So I have tried my best to compile it down to 14 heroes that I think are worth choosing if you do not have them. At the end of the day, you should choose the 5-star that will bring you the most amount of fun in Epic 7. These are just going to be my opinions in the video. If you have your heart dead set on a specific character and you don't have them, I encourage you to actually choose that character. I also think you should choose a character you do not already own. As cool as it is to get a dupe for imprints to power up a character that you like playing a lot, there is something to be said about having access to multiple heroes in this game. You never know when there's a scenario, whether it's PvE or PvP, where you might need a specific hero. So, with our introduction out of the way now, let's move on and talk about our first character in the fire section, which will be Tamarinne. Let's start this video off by talking about the fire units. The three that I'm going to be talking about here are actually incredibly strong. Fire doesn't have too many good units, but the three that I'm going to talk about in this video are incredibly useful and some of the best heroes in the entire game. And I don't really think we can start this list off any better than with Tamarinne. Tamarinne is probably the best PvE character in the entire game, and that is thanks to her S3 here, which is Shining Star. It is an 8-turn cooldown when fully maxed out. When you actually activate this skill, you will have Tamarinne enter idle mode. While she is in idle mode, you get a slew of amazing benefits. First off, activating the skill is a full cleanse on your entire team, so that's obviously very useful. But while you're in idle mode, you get access to things like bonus combat readiness, an attack buff, which is probably the most useful buff in the entire game. You get increased healing, you get ways to dispel enemy buffs, and you also get guaranteed dual attacks with her upgraded S1, so your carry can actually do more damage. Aside from hunts, there's not a single piece of PvE content that Tamarinne isn't amazing. She's probably top tier in almost every single PvE game mode. She's the best character probably in the entire game for Abyss. She's probably one of the best, if not the best, for Hell Raid. She's amazing in Advent. And some expeditions as well, she is the best character you can choose. She makes things trivially easy, and a lot of very difficult content is going to be a lot harder if you do not have access to Tamarinne. She's pretty much a mandatory pickup for every single person playing Epic 7. So if you do not actually have Tamarinne, look no further. This should be your #1 choice. The second fire unit that I want to talk about in this video is Hwayoung. Hwayoung is probably going to be the second highest priority pick for most people watching this video behind Tamarinne. And for good reason. Hwayoung is incredibly pushed. Her S2 Prairie Hawk gives her a massive attack increase as well as a massive damage reduction from critical hits. On top of that, she gets a massive barrier at the start of each fight, and it refreshes at the end of each of her turns. So a lot of free damage from this passive and a lot of free survivability. So again, hits hard, very difficult to kill just off of the passive. Her S3 Monarch's Flaming Strike is borderline broken. This thing one-shots nearly every character in the cast, including blue units that she should have a bad matchup against. It also has a full cleanse before she actually attacks with it, meaning that if you don't silence her, stun her, or kill her, she's probably killing you on her very first turn. On top of that, it also gives her debuff immunity for 2 turns for some reason. This move also has a 3-turn cooldown as opposed to a 4 to 6 turn cooldown like most ultimates, meaning it's spammable, especially when you look at the Soul Burn, which grants an extra turn, meaning this thing really is going to come up pretty much every 2 turns that Hwayoung has. So again, one of the most broken S3s in the game, if not the most broken S3 in the entire game. Her S1 supersonic kick also has good damage multipliers and gives bonus combat readiness, which is pretty indicative of a top tier S1. But for some reason, on top of that, it also gives bonus true damage in the form of its extra little damage proc here. That makes her incredibly useful against dodge units such as Violet and Remnant Violet if you are having trouble with those characters. On top of all of that, she is a fairly easy to gear character since she does not need critical hit chance or critical hit damage. The gear is probably a little bit specialized, but it's nothing that you couldn't find within like a week or two of farming. Even on moderate gear, Hwayoung is probably still going to kill most things in one hit. Talking about particulars in game modes, this character is almost permanently banned in World Arena, and if she's not, she's going to end up being a first or second pick. Now, I understand that that means that you might not want to take the character since it's somebody who is permanently banned, but again, if you yourself are not hard committed to banning this character for the entirety of the time that she's out until you get her, you're still going to want to have her. You're going to be at a massive disadvantage if you can't actually end up picking this character and you are actually trying to climb the ladder. She is also the cornerstone of many of the best Guild War and Arena defenses. I recognize, by the way, I am talking a lot about PvP here, but she's also really useful to you guys, even if you are primarily a PvE player. This character is so pushed that she's incredibly useful in things like Advent, and I can absolutely see her being used in not only Hell Raid, but some of the Abyss floors as well. More important than these facts, though, is that she's one of the best Guild War offense and Arena offense heroes in the game. Even if you do not like PvP, specifically World Arena, I think she is worth it simply because of how trivially easy she can make certain fights for you. At this point, I'm sure you guys are pretty much aware of the saying, thick thighs save lives. So let this woman save your life as well as your money by getting you free rewards in the form of Mystic Medals and Sky Stones, and also let her get you free wins pretty much till the end of time until for some reason they decide to reverse the policy of never nerfing characters in this game. The last fire unit that I want to talk about is Politis, a unit that is incredibly useful for anyone watching that wants to play any facet of PvP. In my Epic 7 2021 year review, I named Politis as the most useful new character released that year, and for good reason. It's all thanks to her S2 passive, Astral Guide. This move reduces enemy combat readiness and also punishes many non-attack skills. Also, a lot of passives in this game have non-attack skill components, so you can think of Astral Guide as a way to punish particular passives as well. On top of that, she has respectable damage and good debuffs on her S1 and S3, including things like Blind, Unbuffable, and obviously a very coveted stun. Politis is an incredibly flexible unit as well. She can be built fast or slow, as a glass cannon DPS, or as a bulky tank. She can hold Tehagel's Ancient Book, which is one of the best artifacts in the game to help support her team, or help amplify her own damage. She can also hold Abyssal Crown and win games for you in one shot with a random team-wide stun on her S2 Astral Guide if it actually procs. She is one of, if not the only, reliable answer to some of the heroes in this game. Whether you're playing against a character like Flan or Amelia, Designer Lilibet, or hell, even a character like Senya, you'll want the option to choose Politis. She's not as strong as she was last year, but I really don't know how a character with a kit that's this flexible and this good won't continue to remain relevant far into the future. Starting off blue as a color is Choux. Blue, at least to me, feels like it's really struggling for good damage dealers right now, as most of the options are hosed by many of the game's aggressive openers or specific silver bullets such as Bellion or Roana. Choux doesn't really have that problem though. She's a relatively safe pick in most scenarios when you need a blue option. She's hard to kill thanks to her massive HP pool, which is 7,323, which is one of the best, if not the best in the entire game. She also has built-in critical hit resistance for your team on her S3, Help Me, Cream. On top of that, she has built-in healing on her S2 Fwoosh, which is spammable thanks to her exclusive equipment here, Snowy Mountain Horn. The first option means that if she gets a critical hit here with her S1 chop, she will have a 40% chance to activate the S2 Fwoosh. That Fwoosh, by the way, is no joke when it comes to damage. It has 70% defense penetration rate thanks to her newest round of buffs. That means that once her S3 is on cooldown, she has a very, very high chance for her to actually start spamming her S1 plus S2 combo. And if luck is on your side, that is incredibly deadly to the opposing team. I've heard members of the community often refer to her as the Chaos Rat, and I think that is a very fitting name. Sometimes Choux will end up countering everything your opponent does and win the game for you instantly. Other times, she's just going to be a very solid support bruiser. Which version you get is going to be a roll of the dice, but if you have a well-built team composition, I think Choux will see a ton of counter chances over a given game. That means that the odds are heavily in your favor with this girl. If you are struggling for a good blue unit for World Arena, or you need a powerful Guild War or Arena defensive unit, I think Choux is a good pickup. Next up, let's talk about Krau. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I think Krau is probably the weakest character that I'm going to recommend in this entire video. That said, Krau is pretty much evergreen. He is a super rock solid knight. He does everything you could really want for a tank character. He has a provoke on his S1. He provides a defense buff as well as a little bit of utility on his S2. And his S3 summon Siegfried is a true damage nuke to one target where the damage it deals is equal to the difference between his max HP and his current HP. So he does pretty much everything you could ask. He protects the team, he provokes the targets, and when things are dire, he can eliminate a specific carry. He is also the only character in Epic 7 history at this point who has never received a buff and is still playable in PvP. He is incredibly, incredibly rock solid. He's not as good as Adventurer Raz in most cases. He's not going to be as good in RTA. He's not going to be as good in Abyss. He's not going to be as good in Expedition. That said, I still think he is worth owning. And that is, again, because of this S3 summon Siegfried. He's particularly powerful at baiting green units in Arena offense as well as Guild War offense, specifically Rimuru Tempest. Rimuru is a character that will obviously use a powerful true damage nuke, but his AI will prioritize blue units, and Krau will usually end up surviving that blow. And if he does, you can get off a quick summon Siegfried and kill any target of your choice on the enemy team, and then he's back to playing the tank role with things like provokes and his defense buffs. So if you are looking for another tank, if you don't have things like Fallen Cecilia, for example, and you're looking for something else to go alongside of your Adventurer Raz, Krau is a pretty good pickup. Again, if you are also struggling in Arena offense or Guild War offense, specifically against powerful green units, then he is going to be a very good option as well. Not as strong as many of the other characters we're going to talk about in this video, but I do think he is a character that's worth owning. Next up is Miss Android 21 herself, Peira. Peira is a multifaceted hero who can function as a tank, a debuffer, a support character, and a speed contester all in one. Her S2 Punishing Blades gives her not only an extra turn, but is an AoE attack that gives the very valuable unbuffable debuff as well as the restrict debuff, which is really good at sabotaging enemy teams, especially if Peira is able to get the very first turn. On top of that, her S3 here, Pack Hunt, gives an attack buff to everyone on your team, gives her a massive barrier, the escort buff, which allows her to essentially play the tank role, and puts her in stealth, which makes her very, very difficult to actually deal with. Her S1 is also a pretty reliable stun, especially if you're willing to soul burn it. This character can also do some incredibly unfair things with the artifact Roana and Luciella. Since she takes an extra turn on her S2, you have multiple chances to actually proc this move, which means that you can essentially get off multiple stuns with her S1, Wolf and Claw, on the enemy team. That is really, really powerful. She's not as good as she used to be, thanks to Desert Jewel Basar's most recent round of buffs. His barrier inversion basically kills her in one hit when she uses Pack Hunt, so that's going to keep her from being one of the top picks for sure in World Arena, but she's still probably the best Guild War defense hero that you can ask for, especially if you're not in like some super high end guild that's playing in like top 100 Guild Wars all the time. Peira is incredibly effective there if you need a powerful Guild War defense unit. She's very difficult to answer, I feel like, for a lot of people in this game. That said, this is not a newbie-friendly hero. You really should be taking Peira if you are only going to be a veteran player or somebody who has a lot of speed gear. This character needs a very high speed investment in order to be effective. You're looking at over 270 plus speed for the lower tiers if you want to actually use her. And as you climb the ranks towards Emperor and Legend, you're looking at 300 plus speed in order for her to be really, really effective. She's not super useful outside of PvP game modes, by the way. She's primarily used these days in Guild Wars, but you can also still use her in Arena, both offensively and defensively. And obviously, again, she is a later pick now in World Arena. Desert Jewel Basar, once again, kind of keeps her from being that top tier pick. That said, I still think Peira is incredible. I like her a lot more as a pickup than the next character that we're going to be talking about because, again, she is such a multifaceted hero. She can carry games with stun locks. She, again, provides all of that support, all of those debuffs. And again, I think she is a reliable character to put a lot of your speed gear on to sabotage people if you're looking for that speed contester. Next up, let's talk about Ran, who is one of the best PvP characters in Epic 7. That is due to the fact that he has 129 base speed, making him the fastest character in Epic 7. That means if both players are of equal gear, that Ran should take the first turn most of the time. On top of that, he has this S3 Instant Blade, which, if he goes first, is a completely debilitating and backbreaking skill. It removes 2 buffs from the enemy team before defense breaking them for 2 turns. Yes, it provides a skill nullifier and stigma, but those are just perks, not really the main reason to use it. So he's going to remove all of your buffs and defense break you. And on top of that, he can soul burn that to almost guarantee that it actually happens. That means if his team has any sort of aggressive follow-up before you can take an action and remove those debuffs, your team is probably dead and you probably didn't even get to play the game. That's what makes Rand so powerful. He is one of the best, if not the best, cleave opener in the entire game. On top of that, he has respectable damage on his S1 thanks to the fact that it has defense penetration on it. And he can use a variety of artifacts for the purposes of increasing his damage, including things that also raise his defense penetration rate. So yeah, really powerful character. Again, one of the strongest characters in Epic 7. That said, I don't really recommend him for most of you watching this video. He is not newbie friendly even a little bit. He is very, very heavily geared towards the veterans, the whales, the people that have a lot of speed gear. He has a really high gear requirement, more so than even Peira. He's going to need to be, again, like 270 plus if you are at the lower ranks of PvP, and 300 plus, even 310 plus if you are at the very top end of the ladder. If you're watching this video and you're unsure about Ran and you're unsure about your gear, then he's probably not going to be the character for you. And I know what you're thinking. He has 129 base speed. He is the fastest. He must be an excellent speed contester. Well, contrary to popular belief, I actually don't think he's that good of a speed contester. If the rest of your team is not really that fast and can't capitalize on this S3 Instant Blade, he doesn't really do anything for you. For example, if you're playing Ran against a bunch of Sids, for example, Assassin Sid and Green Sid, and you take the first turn, even if you defense break their entire team and the Sids go first and second after that, they're just going to reverse cleave you. He's not really somebody who can stop aggressive characters from doing what they're trying to do. He is all in on aggression. He wants all of his teammates to be aggressive in order for him to actually take advantage of, again, that S3 Instant Blade. So again, if you have the need for speed, you're an aggro player, you have very, very good speed gear, by all means take Ran. But for the rest of us watching this video who don't have that, then you can take him or leave him. I don't particularly think he is worth the pickup otherwise. Fittingly, we round out the blue units with Edda because she ties everything we've talked about with these other units together. In my opinion, Edda is the best blue DPS in the game right now, and that's something we talked about with Choux. Blue doesn't really have too many good DPSs that you can choose right now. Choux is a bit safer, but Eda has a lot higher damage potential and can win the game for you much easier than Choux can. She's also a cleave specialist, just like with Ran and Peira. That said, even if you're not a cleave player, Eda is one that is worth considering if you are really serious about PvP. She's what I like to call cleave in a can. So let me explain. Eda's S2 here, Cold Snap, is a respectable AoE DPS move here that has a little bit of dispelling as well as some combat readiness pushback. However, if she's geared with Tehagel's Ancient Book, she can soul burn this on her first turn and take an extra turn. This allows her to immediately follow up with her S3 Absolute Zero, which has very good damage multipliers and is also an AoE stun and will push up your team by 20%. Why this is super good is because of the second part of Absolute Zero. When an ally uses a non-attack skill, and this skill is available according to cooldown count, increases the combat readiness of the caster by 20%. That means that even if you're not a cleaver, you can still cleave with Eda. You can play her with characters like Diane, or even like a Conqueror Lilius, or an Amelia, even a Destina, for example. Anybody who is most likely going to be near the front of the pack and taking the first turn can use a non-attack skill to push Eda to the front, and therefore she can use her soul burn combo to wipe the enemy team out. She is just very, very strong as a cleave option, and not only cleave, but again, standard, because standard teams can just pivot immediately into the threat of cleave just by selecting an Eda on Tehagel's Ancient Book. That's what makes her very, very strong. I think Eda is worth picking up if you are a fan of her style, or you are just really looking for a powerful blue DPS, or again, you want something that can flip the tables in a standard versus standard match, for example. If you're looking for somebody that can just gun down the enemy team and you know they don't have anybody fast, then she's definitely a powerful pocket pick. We started off the fire section with Tamarinne, who was the #1 fire hero, as well as the #1 hero overall for people to pick in this video. So fittingly, I feel like we should start Earth off with Iseria here, who is Tamarinne's bestie. Iseria is an excellent pickup for new players and people who are serious about PvE. She is one of the best PvE heroes in the entire game because of her S2 here, Oathkeeper. It resets the cooldowns of an ally except for Iseria, so you can't target her with herself, and then she gets an extra turn. Why this is good is because of characters like Tamarinne. Tamarinne's Shining Star, where she gets all of her power from, is on an 8 to 9 turn cooldown at the start. Iseria here can use Oathkeeper to reset Tamarinne on her very first turn, which allows you to have idle mode right away and reap all of those benefits. It is a core strategy for a lot of the most difficult PvE content in the entire game. It's also super useful for Guild Wars. If you have the character Dark Corvus, you can reset him and use his powerful S3 to kill characters right at the very start of a battle. On top of the obvious synergies with characters like Tamarinne and Dark Corvus, she is an excellent character in all facets of PvE, thanks to the fact that she is a very reliable defense breaker. She has a defense break on her S1 Refined Flower, as well as on her S3 Full Bloom. Defense breaking is the best debuff, in my opinion, in all of PvE. This makes her an incredibly useful and reliable character in many game modes. She's one of the best characters in Expeditions. She's one of the best characters in Abyss. She's one of the best characters in Hellraid. And she's also super, super useful in a lot of hunts, specifically the Azimanic and Katie's hunts. So if you're struggling with those hunts, very, very good character to pick up. So overall, not much else to say about Iseria. If you are looking for a character that will really help you with some of the game's hardest PvE content, it's really hard to choose somebody that is better than her, aside from obviously, again, Tamarinne. Ah, yes, all reliable. Auntie Alencia isn't afraid to let anyone catch these hands, and due to her really adorable appearance, I wouldn't fault you for catching these feelings as well. Alencia is a mainstay of almost every single PvP game mode, thanks to the fact that she has a massive 7,054 HP total, as well as a respectable speed score of 106 and 652 defense as well. She's very bulky with good speed. She's also a health scaling bruiser, which means that she has respectable damage even if you built her almost entirely as a tank, assuming you have some critical hit chance and critical hit damage sprinkled in there as well. Her kit also has some really good utility. Her exclusive equipment here, the Price of Insolence, gives her obviously extra damage and some effectiveness if you want it. But I think the real winner, at least for me, is the increased healing here on her S1. So she's going to essentially have not only built-in lifesteal on the S1 Eradicate, but it is also a reliable defense breaking move, especially if you're willing to soul burn. So we have a bulky character that can provide us with one of the best debuffs in the game. It also has a guaranteed follow-up here with Noble Blood. You will get an extra attack Trample, which has some injury built into it. So she's really good against some of the better bruisers in the format, such as, say, Choux or Apocalypse Robbie. So that's one thing that's really nice. But I think the main selling point here, the big money maker, is Genesis. It has really good damage for a bruiser. It also is a full strip on the enemy team and provides a 2-turn defense buff for everyone on your team, while also providing Auntie Alencia with a 50% combat readiness buff. Just really, really strong character overall. Her damage isn't as good as it used to be because of some of the changes that they made. I think if you really want to leverage this character and get the most out of her, you want to be playing her on the injury set, ideally with the penetration set as the offset. That will really make her shine, kind of make her one of the scariest characters in all of PvP. That said, she's still good for newer and intermediate players. You can still play her on speed set with like immunity offset or speed set with the critical hit chance offset, and she will do fine. That's one of the main reasons why I'm recommending her. I think she's one of the easier to play, easier to gear characters, and she's super cute and super fun to play as well. Just super useful in all PvP game modes. If you're really unsure and you need a strong green damage dealer for PvP, I think Alencia is pretty much the go-to. I don't really think that there's anyone else that I would choose before her. We will talk about 2 other damage dealers in this section, but I don't think that they are quite as good as Alencia is. Next up is another green damage dealer, and in my opinion, one of the most fun characters to play in the entire game. That is Alencia's best friend herself, Senya. Senya is a powerful, bulky bruiser that can deal a lot of damage and win games by herself. What basically defines the character is her S2 Indomitable Spirit. It increases her attack by 30%, as well as her critical hit resistance by 50%. Additionally, she can't really land critical strikes. On top of that, if an enemy would attack her and it is not a critical hit, basically if the 50-50 they lose that, she will reflect a portion of the damage she takes back at the opponent based on her attack. And if it's available, it will also trigger the non-attack skill, Grace of the Battlefield, which gives your whole team a small barrier and gives Senya a speed buff. So essentially, you want your opponent to actually ram into Senya and not land critical strikes so that she can reflect free damage back at the opponent. And how you accomplish that is with her S3 Dragon Slayer Strike. It's an AoE attack that blinds the enemy team, which lowers their critical hit chance rate. So obviously they'll get some free damage if they hit you while blinded. And it also provokes the enemy team, which forces them to actually attack the Senya. Additionally, it provides you with a counter-attack stance buff, so that way, if they hit you, Senya will obviously counter with even more damage. And you guessed it, the S1 Spear of Vengeance has a provoke built into it, which means that you're essentially going to provoke lock the enemy team and force them to kind of break their weapons against Senya and hopefully die to the reflect damage, as well as the damage from Spear of Vengeance, as well as maybe any artifacts that you actually have her equipped with. Really, really powerful bruiser and can win games entirely by herself, assuming that the enemy doesn't have any way to cleanse the provoke lock or any way to actually punish your counterattack stance with a character like, say, maybe Lionheart Symia or Roana, who, spoiler alert, we will be talking about later on in this video. Again, very fun character, very powerful PvP character as well. Also is a specialist versus some of the cleave compositions because she has that 50-50 coin flip. She can survive, and with her EE here, you can make it so that the Spear of Vengeance has some lifesteal. So you can essentially have her solo an entire squishy team if she manages to actually make it to her first turn. So she has a lot of interesting gameplay paths, Also very good against dodge units. Hwayoung is probably still going to be the pick for most of you over this character if you do not have Hwayoung. Hwayoung is better at dealing with dodge units like Violet and Remnant Violet, but Senya, since she can't land critical strikes, is also a very respectable answer to dodge characters. And just like with Hwayoung, this character requires very specialized gear, but it's nothing too crazy. You're just going to, again, need like an attack percentage necklace or maybe an attack percentage ring and some speed boots. I do have a guide, like I do with a lot of the characters on this list, for this character. So if you're looking for more specifics, take a gander at that. The last damage dealer that I want to talk about is the Apple Man himself, Violet. Violet has a very unique playstyle that is very frustrating for opponents to play against and is still very powerful. Not as strong as it was a year ago, but is still very, very good. So if you don't know how Violet works, his S3 here, Butterfly Cut, is a strong single target attack that if he spends 5 focus on, will reset the cooldown. And obviously at 5 focus, it's going to do a lot more damage as well. The Butterfly Cut, while it's available and he hasn't used it, increases his evasion by 35%. And then if he does actually evade an attack, he will counter attack with his S1 Graceful Cut. Now, for starters, Violet is a thief, meaning he can wear Moonlight Dreamblade, which gives him 20% more evasion, giving him greater than a 50% chance to dodge anything you throw at him, which means that he has a 55% chance to counter with an attack buff Graceful Cut that will not only attack down the person who tried to hit him, but also increase Violet's combat readiness and also give him 2 focus, which will, again, allow him to use this empowered Butterfly Cut without really losing his evasion. And just in case that wasn't annoying enough, his S2 has a built-in heal, a cleanse for 2 debuffs here, and then also gives him the extra turn and a little bit of critical hit chance and critical hit damage. So he's a very complete character, very, very annoying. And because of how elemental advantage and disadvantage works in this game, what he primarily is used for nowadays is to counter blue damage dealers, because blue characters naturally have a 50% chance to miss green characters. Well, Violet already has a base 55% dodge chance, which means blue characters can't actually hit him and he will always get a counter. He is primarily used to counter blue heavy compositions in most game modes of PvP. On top of that, he is an excellent character to put on your Guild War defense as well as your arena defense, because if you just keep winning coin flips, he can solo entire teams, especially if you put him on the lifesteal set. Lifesteal plus penetration is probably the way that most people will gear him, although lifesteal with any other offset you have laying around is just as fine as well. Lifesteal is pretty easy even for newer players to get as well, because most of the Abyss rewards as you climb the tower are going to be lifesteal sets. So really easy to gear, really simple playstyle, and then again can just cheese wins that you have otherwise no business of winning. So yeah, if you're looking for a very frustrating character to play for your opponents to play against, like if you just want to have a trolley playstyle, he's very good. Very good, again, for those arena and Guild War defenses. Also pretty good for an automaton tower if you're looking for somebody there as well. And again, really easy to gear. Those are his major selling points. If you don't have Violet, he's definitely worth considering picking up. To round out the video, let's talk about 2 green Soul Weavers, the first of which is Destina, who was the very first character that I started Epic 7 with. Right now, I feel like Destina is in a very good spot. I would say she is a top tier Soul Weaver for PvP. I think the only one I can say definitively is better than her is Diane, which, by the way, if you don't have Diane and you're watching this video, her banner should be coming up very, very shortly. So make sure that you get her. I think it should be in like a week or so from the time this video actually airs, or it might actually even go up by the time this video airs. So again, make sure you pick up Diane. But other than that, Amelia, Moon Bunny, Maid Chloe, Ruel, I think Destina can make an argument that she's as good or better than all of those characters. She has an incredibly well-rounded kit. Her S1 Key to an Oath is a single target heal, and if you soul burn it, it becomes an AoE heal. Her S2 is a combat readiness push as well as a 2 debuff Dispel, and with the exclusive equipment Ruel's Sad Promise, you can increase that combat readiness to 50%. This skill is basically on par with Amelia's S2, although it doesn't give the attack buff. But considering Destina is an RGB that's available always, and Amelia is a limited, it's pretty close. It's honestly a pretty good approximation of that skill. The real moneymaker here, though, is this S3 Destina's Grace. It is an AoE revive, which is very, very uncommon. Only really Maid Chloe has this skill, and that is an ML 5-star. So not only do you get a revive, but it is also a full cleanse on your team as well as an AoE heal. And it has a passive component that increases the ER of Destina by 60%. This kit literally has everything you could want in a support character except for an attack buff. Again, though, what really I think sets Destina apart is the fact that she is a powerful cleanser. If you do not have Designer Lilibet and Mediator Quirk, who are 5-star cleansers, I really think you should pick up Destina. As you climb higher into the ranks of World Arena, debuffers become more and more common with characters like Angel of Light and Angelica, as well as Solitaria of the Snow. You will lose to those characters if you do not have a powerful cleanser. And I would say that Destina is probably the third best cleanser right now in the game. And she's also, again, a very powerful general use Soul Weaver. So if you're really looking for a cleanser, you need a all-rounder support, and you don't have your Amelias, your Ruels, your Maid Chloes, your Moon Bunny Dominiels, you don't have your Mediator Quirks or your Designer Lilibets. Destina is one of the very best that you can pick up for sure. Just make sure that you actually pick up Diane on her rerun as well if you do not have her. So let's round out the video with Roana, the Lewd Angel herself. Roana is one of the strongest characters I think you can pick on this entire list. I wouldn't take her over Tamarinne, or I wouldn't take her over Hwayoung, but she is definitely, right after them, either third or fourth for the most part. And that's because Roana is very powerful when she's actually powerful. Whether you are a PvP or a PvE player, there are certain scenarios where Roana is invaluable. For starters, this character has 802 defense, which is the highest in Epic 7, and also a very respectable health score. She is literally as thick as she appears. The rest of her kit, besides her S2, isn't really much to write home about. The S1 is a pretty pitiful barrier. It's one of the worst ones in the entire game. And the S3 is a moderate AoE heal with a 2-turn re-raise buff. That can be pretty good, in all honesty, but the real moneymaker here is Vigilant Eye. Roana, as a character, isn't really that good. She is just a vessel for this S2 passive Vigilant Eye. We do not care about her turns. We just care about Vigilant Eye. This is a passive that says when an ally on your team is attacked by an extra attack, counter attack, or dual attack, you will receive an AoE heal as well as a combat readiness push to everyone on your team by 5% for each ally attacked. If you have this thing maxed out and it triggers, it might as well just be a full heal for your entire team. Now, the nature of how Epic 7 is designed, we have things like counter attack sets in PvP. We have a lot of dual attacks baked into a lot of characters' kits, and extra attacks and counter attacks are baked into a lot of the various different bosses throughout the game. That means that there is a select number of scenarios where Roana basically makes your team have God mode. If you're in PvP and you're fighting against a character like Seaside Bologna or Bellion or Solitaria of the Snow, or sometimes even Conqueror Lilius, or even Archdemon Shadow, if you're playing against one of those characters and they don't have a way to shut off Vigilant Eye, that's it. It's a wrap. You probably just win the game for free. You just turn on the Vigilant Eye God mode and you just win. If she's on Stella Harpa, by the way, the matchup against Archdemon Shadow becomes nightmarish because it becomes nearly impossible to actually seal her, assuming that the Stella Harpa is raised to an adequate level. So again, auto-win PvP scenarios, especially even like in an arena defense or a Guild War defense scenario, like if you see like those Seaside Bolognas or even those Bellions on the defense, you can bring Roana into them. Again, just snap, win those fights. For PvE, she pretty much can win certain Hell Raids or expeditions pretty much for free. You think of like the Hell Raid Queen, for example, who has a lot of extra attacks. Roana will just basically make your team immortal, and you can just auto and almost guarantee win the fight for sure. The Blue Expedition, she is the best tank for sure, because the optimal way to play it is to essentially keep triggering the boss's counterattack to reap the benefits of the free combat readiness as well as the free heals. She's also arguably the easiest character to gear in Epic 7. Again, she is not a character. She is literally just this passive Vigilant Eye. For the first year and a half I had her, I literally had her on the I-75 health set that the game gives you for free. That's how low the barrier is to gear this character. Just put as much HP and defense on her as possible. The speed doesn't matter because we're just here for Vigilant Eye. If you want to put something else on her, put some effect resistance so it's harder to stop the Vigilant Eye. But other than that, super easy character to gear. Pretty much non-existent playstyle aside from just existing and reaping the benefits of one of the most broken passives in Epic 7. And that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully this guide was of some help to you. If you think it will be of some usefulness to other players, feel free to share it with them as well. You guys can help me out by remembering to leave a like on the video, and subscribing if you're not already really does help me out here a ton at this channel. As always, have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week, and I'll catch you guys all in the next video now. Bye-bye.